Anyway, hey, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with Crannk.com and with that metalstation.com. And tonight, depending on where you are, I'm having a chat with Lucas, vocalist and keys for the Canadian heavy metalist Malacoda, who are due to release the Crawling Chaos single 5th of February, which is tomorrow, depending where you are in the world, again, and the EP of the same name, Crawling Chaos, which comes out 2nd of April. Lucas, cheers for joining me, man.
Oh, thanks for having me on, man.
No, absolute pleasure, man. I come across your work back in 2018 through John Asher Media Relations. So shout out to him as well, man. I did try and cover a little bit of Crannk. I wasn't as busy as I am now, and I definitely wasn't as busy with the interviews. But for those who haven't heard of Malacoda, how would you describe yourself and the band?
I would probably say that we've kind of been a weird hodgepodge of things. Every album has sounded sort of different. We've always had like a very dark, dare I say, gothic edge to us, but we were never quite that depressing. We still had a lot of power and energy. So I'd say we're kind of like a blend of the kind of darkness of goth and the epicness of power metal, if you will.
Yeah, exactly, man, because it does have all sorts of elements in it, as you're saying, the dark goth, the heavy metal power elements, but it's got a little bit of everything as well, which is really cool. It must be good for you guys to kind of not kind of get too locked into one kind of element of Malacoda.
Yeah, I don't know, like I've worked on tons of different music over the year. Like I've been a music producer since I guess 2009, maybe 2008, 2009, a long time. I've worked out of as an engineer out of like commercial studios in Toronto, on and off and all over the GTA. So I've always had an opportunity to work with all kinds of music, everything from country to hip hop to metal, obviously. So I don't know. I find that if I'm working on the same thing for too long, I get bored.
Yeah.
So creating a sound that lets us have some flexibility, it kind of keeps it kind of fresh and exciting, not just for me, but even for the other guys in the band.
It must be good for you doing that kind of work in between as well, because you'd come back kind of inspired into your own project with all these different ideas. Because I was talking to Thomas from Corpaclani, and he said, was it Thomas or another guy? And he said that they do other stuff in between, and it kind of helps them feel invigorated and motivated for when they come into their projects. And it's actually come up. It's funny how when you have these conversations in interviews and you talk to people, these subject matters kind of come around on themselves in the world. It's funny, man.
I mean, I think it's like, if you're working in music, like if you're in a band and you're doing it somewhat professionally, you kind of find yourself working in other areas of music regardless, right? Like, like I've been a session player. In fact, like I just finished playing session keys for some band in, I think, South America. They paid me to record some keyboard parts for them. So it's something that I'm always more of because good at. So
Yeah, it's definitely something you're always wanting to do more of, and doing things like that as well, like gets your name around as well, all over the place in the world as well, and working with different projects. And as we were just saying, it does invigorate you for your own project.
Yeah, well, and it's good because I find that it also introduces me to things that I might not have heard before, like, because a lot of the time you're kind of fed based on ads. I was going to say the radio, but I mean nobody listens to the radio anymore. But like like ads on Facebook, or even like Spotify recommends things. And kind of working in music, in even the production or studio, really in any way, shape, or form, gets you listening to things that you normally wouldn't be exposed to. And I honestly think that is the most important thing, as a musician, to do, is to find things that you wouldn't normally listen to. There's been times where I've had like writer's block, and it's just like I hear something that's completely unique, completely different than what I'm used to listening to, and then it just sparks something, and then next thing you know, I have like a 14 song concept album like done. Right?
Yeah.
It's weird. Motivation in art is weird.
Yeah, I think it's important not only as a musician, but for the average person to sit around like me who listens to music. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing better when I started doing this kind of stuff. Nothing better than getting up each morning and listening to different bands every day, dude. It kind of really does make you grow as well musically, and you're able to pick up a lot more and go, oh, I see what they're doing now, and listening to going from power metal to some brutal death to some rock and roll to even some folk, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and you'd also be surprised like what you'd like something that or even like what somebody else might like obviously I'm in a heavy metal band and I love heavy metal, but I also really like ambient music,
Yeah.
which is like the exact opposite of the spectrum, right? It's not heavy at all. It's not very exciting usually. So it's, those two different extremes. But I find that because I'm into ambient music, I tend to approach production a little bit differently, especially when it comes to keyboards. So it kind of does help, like I've worked with guys that are into like it was like a rock project, let's say, but the guy was super into like country, like old school country. So the songs he was writing, we kind of was his voice had that natural kind of country drawl to it, and we were like, okay, we have to bring that out. Like that has to be like that's your sound. Like it's like Disturbed style rock with like a bit of a country twang in the vocal. So it was really cool, and it was what made the project unique and for me interesting to work on.
Yeah, that would have sounded heaps cool, man. That bit of country, man. Just highlighting that Devil Driver one, man. He done it so bloody well, bringing all those country colours into
Yeah,
that. I love the heck out of that album, dude.
yeah, it's that too, right? Like it also just gets other people listening to you
Yeah,
too, right? Like yeah, like again, like I'm sure like a lot of people were into a lot of new metal, like Limp Bizkit and stuff because of the hip hop edge to it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into this EP, Crawling Chaos, man. So when did you start making this? So you've done the Restless Dream 2018. That's kind of when I come across Malacoda in 2018. Kind of what happened from there, man? Like, kind of what did you just get up to?
So yeah, so in 2018 we released Restless Dreams. That record took a while to make. I think we pretty much started working on it right after the EP we did before Ritualis Aeterna, which I think came out in 2016.
Yeah.
And we kind of just started working on Restless Dreams pretty much right after, and it was a very different record for us. A bit of a lineup change and just direction wise, we actually like stripped back pretty much all the keyboards. There was very little keys in it, and we kind of focused on making it a little bit more like a prog metal record.
Yeah.
Which was very different and complicated and a pain in the ass. But as it was getting mixed, I was working on some music already. I was just inspired to write, and I actually ended up writing probably like I don't know 10 songs or so, and I've actually been sitting on these since before we released Restless Dreams. So these songs I've been sitting on these since 2017. So we released we haven't released any of them. Obviously, the first 4 of them will be released on Crawling Chaos on April 2nd. But the plan is the rest of this year we're actually going to release the rest of these songs. There's about 12 of them, so there'll be other EPs released. So that was pretty much the process. I just couldn't stand still. I had to keep writing.
Yeah, just waiting for the right time to kind of drop it as well, I suppose too.
Yeah, because I didn't want to take away from what we had going on with Restless Dreams, because we had like we had a bunch of music videos, there was a label involved that was distributing it, and I didn't want to
Rock Shots Records, I think it was, wasn't it?
That was Rock Shots. Yeah, so we were with Rock Shots at the time, and I just was like, yeah, you know what, let's just kind of wait and see. Let's take Restless Dreams as far as we could. I mean, we gigged for it up until right before COVID hit, more or less.
Yeah.
So we gigged with it for I don't know about a year or 2 years or whatever. So I didn't want to take away from the experiences we were having with that, and I wanted to just ride that train as far as I could. And then it was like, okay, guys, like let's COVID hit, and it's like, okay, well, we have nothing better to do but to stay home and finish this stuff. So I literally spent like all of last year basically mixing it and mastering it and we were making videos for it and all that stuff. So it was a long process.
Long process, but I suppose you would have the studio at home as well would have made it a little better, working from home and kind of taking advantage of what time we had, everyone in the world kind of in the same boat, all sitting at home, all kind of doing the right thing. Well, all the people that were doing the right thing, kicking it at home and thinking about everyone else, you know what I mean? And people like yourself and I were like, okay, let's just get creative. I was chatting to bands, no doubt. People like all the musicians I've been talking to are like, 2020, I just work, dude.
Yeah. There's, it was interesting because, working at a studio, obviously I couldn't have like a band in here, obviously. And I have a studio in my house. So it's not, it wasn't like I had a ton of overhead or anything like that. But it was like, it's like I couldn't record. I had bands that I had big projects coming in, and literally they all had to get canceled because of it. Right. So it was like, oh, that kind of sucks. And it was kind of dead for a while. And then I think what I did is I really embraced the like online aspect of this. So, collaborating as a session player, just sending files to people, getting, saying, hey, like, like I'll critique your mix and stuff like that. And then also focusing on the education side of it. So teaching people who don't know how to use, Pro Tools, or who don't know anything about mixing or whatever it is. I've really worked on my teaching skills. So that's actually what I think has kept me the most busy.
Yeah, and it's good because now you can kind of like, now we all know how to work from home a little bit more. I suppose we can all kind of balance the work-home life a little bit better going forward. I suppose pre-2020, everyone was just fucking offices or studios, or at least now we can kind of have that balance a little more, man. So when did you start working on this like EP through 2020? When was it like you were like, yeah, okay, this is going to come out and we're going to do this? Or because you had some issues with a drummer as well. And
we had a few we had a few different things going on where we didn't have a drummer. So what we did was, with these 12 songs that we've split into 3 EPs, we basically were like, well, we have a lot of friends who play drums from either different parts of the country or from different bands or whatever. So we just kind of asked them. We basically were like, well, we want to work on these 2. So let's see if Ellie, she's a drummer. Ellie Bertrand, she's a drummer out of Quebec, and she was in a band. Yeah, that's who. Yeah, so we got her to do 2 songs on this EP, and she was great. It was the first time I was working with her. We had met her at an event in Quebec, and she was just awesome. And then we kind of just got a few other buddies to do stuff, and then towards the end, to wrap up the EP, funny enough, the last drummer we worked with is also on the EP, Victor Bochat.
Yep.
And he did the other 2 songs on the EP. So the first and the last drummer we worked with on these whole collections is on our first EP, which was cool. So it was, so we probably did that right at the tail end of 2019, all of that recording. And then I didn't start mixing it until probably the spring of that year, because we also had to do other things, like we had to retrack some solos and kind of clean up some things. It was kind of hard to do some of that because of COVID, obviously, because we couldn't meet. So I literally had to teach my guitar player a few things on Pro Tools because he wasn't familiar with that. So it was a bit of a learning curve for some of the guys. If I'm being totally honest with you, we didn't finish like all of the videos to these until maybe like a month ago. So it's like they were done, and we're like, okay, are we ready to release these things after 3 friggin' years? Can we like get this out now? And so yeah, that it wasn't exactly the most well stretched out as far as time management, but we just were like, okay, it's ready. We got to get it out now. We got to do it. We got to move on to another project after this.
Yeah, and it gives people time, like, to get kind of track down music as well, and explore music, as we were saying before, and grab releases like this. Crawling Chaos, guest vocalists. You got a couple of guest vocalists on there?
Yeah, so we have James Delbridge. He's from a band in Ottawa called Lycanthro. They're like kind of like a classic power metal kind of band. They're cool. He's a good friend of mine.
I went and checked him out. I love doing that with I love when I do that, like with interviews or people I'm talking to, and I'll be like, okay, then who's this guy? I've got to go check them out. And I do that and you just kind of go down this rabbit hole of music. I love doing it, and anyone watching this needs to do that as well.
I agree. I mean, again, it's a great way to discover new bands that you might otherwise not be exposed to. So it's funny. He's come to see us play. It's funny. We've been trying to set up a gig with our two bands for years, and it just never lines up. It's like always like, ah, shit, like, we can't make it down to play a show in Ottawa, or he can't make it, or, we're playing a show in Toronto and then he's playing one a week later. So we're like, oh, fuck, we can't do it. So we just thought, what, screw it. Let's just get him to sing on a song. So he sings on one of them. And then we have Beth Wilson, who my bass player actually is the one who found her. I think she was singing at a cover band at a bar at his university, at McMaster University, and he was like, dude, like, this chick has a great voice, like, we should get her on a if we need backup vocals or something. I was like, oh, okay, cool, let's see her. And we recorded her, and I was like, wasn't expecting much. I was like, yeah, okay, like, she, and then I heard her and I was like, holy shit, she's probably like the best singer I've ever worked with. It was like, wow, you basically did like, 4 songs or whatever in like 10 minutes, and it was all pitch perfect.
Yeah, because she's on the 2 tracks you got her on, and speaking of the single which comes out tomorrow, the Crawling Chaos one as well.
Yes, she is. She's on that one. That was the one when I heard it. I think that was the first one we recorded with her in that day. And right at the beginning, like, there's a point where you hear her right at the beginning, and that was the part where I was like, holy crap. And I was just sold on working with her. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it sounds really nice, and I've got to have a little sneaky listen to this EP, and it's a really cracking EP. People are gonna be impressed with it. It's Malacoda, and but it's got, as you said in the write up too, it's got a little bit of a different sound. You're going back to the older, a little bit of Malacoda sound as well. As you said, you kind of had those proggy vibes with the Restless Dreams a little bit too, and it was a concept about the Silent Hill story and everything as well. So this one would have been good to kind of come back a little bit as well.
Yeah, doing the concept album on Silent Hill was very hard because it's a concept album, and I don't know. I don't half-ass anything, so I had to. Okay, we have to make the song sound like this to get this kind of vibe. I hate it.
Play 50 hours of Silent Hill again.
No, pretty like literally, yeah. It was a mess, but. So with these, it was like, I kind of wanted to go back a bit to Ritualis Aeterna, which had a lot of cool keys on it, and a bit more of a, I don't know, symphonic edge to it, I guess. Yeah. So I kind of wanted to sprinkle that a bit in. We didn't go too overboard, I don't think, with it this time around. It's still fairly raw in spots, but yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think these are some pretty cool songs. They're a lot more to the point.
Yeah, that Crawling Chaos single, man, it's gonna rip tomorrow because it's kind of it's got the real power metal vibes to it, dude. At one point, dare I say, I was thinking, man, that's kind of like almost some Iced Earth vibes in there too.
Yeah. It's got like a power metal vibe, but it's still fairly dark. It's aggressive too, but it's not like it's not like death metal. It's not like Cannibal Corpse aggressive. I don't think I could ever pull that off.
No, but it's a cracking track, man. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of what that track means as you wrote the song, kind of lyrically?
So I for that song in particular, again, the thing that we usually talked about in older Malacoda tracks too was literature or horror movies or Gothic Victorian literature. Like we did a whole thing based on like Dracula, Frankenstein, all that crap. So I kind of wanted to go back a bit to that, our literature based roots, and I thought we haven't done H.P. Lovecraft, so I was like, okay, Crawling Chaos, that's the reference of a good short story called Nyarlathotep, and it's kind of just about that. I'm kind of just taking the events of that short story and kind of making a song around it. So, it's got a little bit of an Egyptian vibe in some of the riffs because the character has an Egyptian root, and it's more or less just about, seeing something so horrifying, your mind can't comprehend it. So you just go nuts. As you do in a Lovecraft story, right?
Yeah, man. So. I listen to a fair bit of H.P. Lovecraft stories, man. I've got like how many hours of audibles, dude? I've actually got.
Oh, nice.
I've got a holder, man. Audibles are cool, man. Get in the car and put them on. It's great, man. Especially old HP Lovecraft late at night. It's cool, man. Cover. We're gonna talk about the cover art and that.
So the cover art was cool. So my girlfriend is a graphic designer. My girlfriend's actually on the cover of Restless Dreams.
Yeah.
That's her face on this
I
one.
thought that was familiar, dude.
So this one is her friend. We have a friend who's she's like an alternative model in Toronto. She goes by the name Goddess of Death. I know, nice and
cool.
spooky. And we just kind of, we did a photo shoot with her because she has an endorsement with all of these makeup lines, but also contact lenses. So, the eyes that she had, like, we didn't make those are some contacts she popped in. That's why her eyes look all reptilian looking.
Yeah.
And she, she likes, the HP Lovecraft stuff and the gothic stuff. So she kind of dressed it up a bit. She kind of got the vibe, and we just literally did a photo shoot. And then I just gave all the photos to my girlfriend and said, make this look nice, make this look, professional. And she, found things that reference Lovecraft, found images that, lots of like tentacle imagery and stuff. And then she just basically created something, and it looks pretty cool. I've always thought, like, album covers are now they're kind of weird because nobody really buys CDs. So it's like, well, it's a little Spotify image usually, right? So, how important is it? But I wanted to create something that kind of spoke to, I guess, a bit more of the power metal side of things while still keeping it a little bit dark. So that's why we went with that artistic direction.
Yeah, I think visually I like cover art, man. I'm telling my age, as you can probably tell, but I'm like 40, man. I used to love going into like CD stores, and I used to go in and pick CDs sometimes just because the cover art looked dope, man.
I did that. I did that too. I did that all the time. There was a store in Toronto, HMV. We had like a 3-story one, and the top floor it was all metal, basically, or mostly metal. And I remember, and it was just like CDs that you just wouldn't find anywhere, like it's the most obscure power metal band from Germany. And I remember like going there like, once a month and just trying to find something just based on the album cover, like what it looked like. And yeah, I mean, now I think it's the lost thing. I don't think people really do that anymore, which is a shame because it's part of the allure.
Yeah, man. I'm noticing that it's not as big as it used to, but I'm finding people will more so buy records, because I've even got records now, and buy records and merch in the metal scene and the punk and the rock scene probably more than the DJ or fucking hip hop scene, because I'll just go download that shit off Spotify or whatever. But whereas people like me are just committed to going and buying merch and shirts and records. And also another thing, like with you not being able to play live, that's also where you also probably do get a lot of merch. People don't realize when bands go to play a show, they fucking play the show. Bands like Malacoda, you're up there, you play on stage, fuck yeah, you got someone comes in the show. They're not necessarily there to see Malacoda, but they're like, wow, I like Malacoda, and they go over to the merch stand. You're standing there going, how you going, bud? They're like, buy a CD, buy a shirt, and then they walk away and they tell all their mates when they get back. And then, you know what I mean? And not only the band that's not getting that merch there, it's also the whole industry behind it, the sound engineers, people like yourself who's a producer and doing all that kind of stuff behind the scenes as well that was affected by it. So in my opinion, more so now than ever, people need to get along and buy CDs, buy records, and support bands like Malacoda. And if you do get to play in 2020, and I know it's going to be hard for internationals to get there each country, but support your local scene. Everyone get out and support the Canadian live scene, man. Support what you've got going on in Ontario, man. When gigs are finally going again, get along and make sure your community is healthy. Your music community is booming and strong, because that's what I'm all about, supporting the scenes everywhere. So if you listen to this, don't just go like, subscribe on Spotify, track down some merch, go support Malacoda.
Yeah, without being able to play shows, like most sales are generated during shows, obviously. I mean, like every now and then we'll get trickle sales, or but then we'll also, the other side is, in order to generate that, we have to put more money into advertising, right? Into even just social media ads or whatever it might be. So I mean, the amount we would sell in one show, might take a little bit more money to do than just getting to the gig. And it also might, it'll take a lot longer to generate that sale in some cases. It's going to be interesting to see, like, how things go within the next year for sure in regards to COVID and how what's going to happen to the music scene. Because venue, if I'm being totally honest with you, in Toronto at least, venues were starting to close even before COVID hit, like years before. So now I don't even know what would be left to play in the city. Where would be left to play, to be honest with you?
It's the same here in Australia, though. We've had some good venues, like really good venues that were closing up pre-COVID as well. I think people worldwide need to get along and really start supporting their scenes. You know what I mean? Because if we haven't got a strong local scene in each country we're living in, how the hell are we going to keep this worldwide metal scene and this metal elitism? I don't handle any of that because the scene's not big enough. We've got to all kind of support each other. And if you don't like something, just don't listen to it, dude. Like it on Facebook or fucking wherever you are and do it, type away like a keyboard warrior. I just don't understand it,
it's silly. I remember when I was in high school, there was a guy I used to go to every concert with for a bit, and he was a black metal elitist, so he only listened to black metal. And like, no offense to anybody who likes black metal, but if that's gonna be the one thing you listen to, like, that's pretty insane.
Yeah, I know. I love
like,
black metal, but I could not listen to that all the time.
No, like, like I like some black metal too. And I remember we went to see some show, and it wasn't anybody big, and I think it was an Encifrum show, so they were headlining.
Yeah.
But this is before this is right when Iron came out, and the opening band, I think, was some band from British Columbia. I think they were called Dark Forest or something like that. And I thought they were pretty good. I bought their CD. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And my black metal elitist buddy gets it. He goes, ew, why did you buy that? I'm like, because it's cool. They were good. Yeah. You like them? Yeah, but they're signed to a label, so that means they're too mainstream. I'm like,
what? Well, so now they can actually pay for rent to live in a house, or at least pay for a jam space, or at least buy a new guitar because they've been using the same guitar for 20 years.
I just don't get that. Shit. I just don't get that mentality, man. And it's you see it a lot in not just metal, but you do see it a lot in metal. Yeah. But you see it a lot with music fans that I've always said, like, they and this even just from clients I've worked with, like, they kind of have a narrative of how they think a bands are, or the music industry is, having never like done anything in it. And it's like, some of the stuff you go, no guys, like that's not how it actually works. Like that's not the mentality you should have. That's unhealthy, kind of a thing, and it's not gonna do you any favors. And they just go, yeah, whatever, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's like, all right.
No, it's all about supporting the community, and especially with releases like Malacoda's Crawling Chaos EP, man. It's a great release. You got my support, man. I'm going to be cranking this on the show. I'll crank the single when it releases tomorrow as well, dude. Did you want to crank a track up off Restless Dreams, since we were chatting about that as well?
Sure, why not? Let me think. A good song off of that would probably be Wrapped in Laments.
Done, man. Wrapped in Laments, man. And I will play the single as well when it drops. Lucas, this has been an absolute pleasure, man. Did you have any last words, shout outs, or thank yous you'd like to add in? Or anything I forgot?
No, I don't think so. I think you got everything. I know I want to say thanks to everybody who helped make this release come true. Obviously, everybody who's worked on it behind the scenes, and everybody who's continuing to work on it in some capacity. And I just think, everybody who's listening, please give it a listen, check it out. And if you think we suck, please send us an email, because I love reading those.
Yeah, we all love reading those kind of emails. Cheers, Lucas. This has been an absolute pleasure. Everyone grab this Crawling Chaos EP when it drops on 2nd of April. The single will be dropping tomorrow when this interview drops, which will be today. So everyone grab that single as well, put it in the stereo, turn up really loud, grab the other releases from Malacoda. The neighbours are going to want to hear them too. Lucas, cheers, mate.
See you later.
See ya. Cheers, dude.